I never thought that the greatest joy at the age of 25 would be so simple. It wasn't the day I held my college diploma, standing in the glaring sun of the campus square. It wasn't the email notifying me of my job acceptance at a marketing company right in the heart of Seattle. Nor was it the first time I saw my name on a business card. It was the moment I opened my eyes every morning and saw Stefan lying beside me. My name is Anders. I grew up in a small town in northern Oregon, where everything moved slowly and people knew each other by their kindergarten names. I left for college with an old suitcase, a student loan, and a nameless fear. The fear that if I lived true to myself, I'd lose more than I had. I met Stefan in my senior year of college. It was during an orientation for graduating students, a boring seminar on resumes, interviews, and stepping into the real world. I arrived late and quietly sat in the back row. Then I heard a voice from the front. Deep, warm, a bit husky, as if the person had just laughed too much. I don't remember what the speaker said that day. I only remember that when the talk ended, Stefan turned around and asked to borrow my pen. He had eyes the color of a gray-blue lake on an autumn morning. His dark brown hair was slightly messy, as if he just pulled off a beanie in a hurry. And his smile, God, that smile made me forget I was in class. Thanks, man, he said, extending his hand. Stefan. I shook it. Anders. We didn't know that handshake would change the entire trajectory of our lives. We started with coffee dates at a small cafe. At first, it was just talk about jobs, failed interviews, and the anxiety of leaving the safety of campus. Then gradually, the conversations turned more personal. Stefan told me he was from Denver, from a fairly strict religious family. It had taken him years to accept that he was gay. I listened, and my heart tightened because I understood. I hadn't fully come out either. To a few close friends, yes. To my family, no. One evening, after finishing a final class communications plan together, we sat on the dorm steps. The April wind carried the scent of damp grass and distant traffic. Have you ever thought, Stefan asked, staring at the darkening sky, that you'd find someone right in this transition phase? I knew the question wasn't just about love. It was about the future, about whether we could be ourselves and step into the adult world without pretending. I swallowed. I wasn't looking, but if I found them, I wouldn't let it slip away. Stefan turned to look at me. That moment lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough for both of us to understand. He leaned in closer. I could hear my heart pounding in my chest. Our first kiss wasn't intense, not explosive. It was slow, exploratory, as if we were both asking, "Are you sure?" And when our lips met, I knew there was no turning back. We graduated in June. On diploma day, we both wore black gowns and square caps. Stefan stood next to me in the group photo, his hand accidentally brushing mine under the thick fabric. No one noticed, but to me it was a silent promise. We both got jobs in Seattle, different companies but only a few blocks apart. We decided to rent an apartment together. Just to save money, Stefan said with a half smile as he signed the lease. But we both knew that wasn't the only reason. Our apartment was on the third floor of an old red brick building. The windows overlooked a street lined with maple trees. In the mornings, sunlight streamed through the thin curtains, illuminating the wooden floor and Stefan's face as he slept. On our first night there, we lay side by side on the new mattress, surrounded by unpacked boxes. "We're really doing this," I whispered. "Yeah," Stefan replied, lacing his fingers with mine under the blanket. "We're starting." I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know how my family would react when I told the truth. I didn't know if work pressure, money, or adult life would change us. But the next morning, when I woke up, Stefan was still there. His hair tousled, his breathing steady. One arm draped over my waist as if afraid I'd disappear. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel afraid thinking about the new day. I just felt a quiet, warm joy spreading through my chest. The joy of waking up next to him. Seattle welcomed us with foggy mornings and light rains that lingered like an endless soundtrack. Work life was unlike anything I'd experienced in college. No more flexible schedules, No more late-night essays followed by noon naps. Instead, alarms at 6:30 a.m., rushed coffee, and crowded trains. But one thing made it all different. I no longer woke up alone. Stefan usually got up 10 minutes before me. He'd sit propped against the headboard, reading work emails on his phone, hair still messy, the soft morning light highlighting his sharp cheekbones. Some mornings, I'd open my eyes and catch him looking at me. "What are you looking at?" I'd mumble, still groggy. Stefan would shrug, a smile tugging at his lips. "Just, still feels a bit crazy. I wake up and the first person I see is you." I'd roll closer, burying my face in his chest. "You can look at me every morning, free of charge." Stefan would laugh, leaning down to kiss my forehead lightly. Those small gestures, the kiss on my hair, his hand brushing my back as he passed in the kitchen, him always remembering I preferred almond milk over regular, made me realize that love isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's just tiny details, repeated every day. My job was busier than I'd imagined. As a new marketing team member, I had to prove myself. I'd often stay late at the office, editing proposals for the 5th or 6th time. Some days I'd get home near 9 p.m., exhausted enough to just collapse into bed. But Stefan always waited for me. Sometimes it was a plate of pasta he'd cooked himself, sometimes just 2 beers set on the table. He worked in graphic design for a tech startup, more flexible hours than mine. "How was your day?" he'd ask, pulling me onto the couch, my feet on his lap. "I think my boss wants to kill me," I'd groan. "Or at least work me to death." Stefan would smile, his fingers gently massaging my calf. "You don't have to prove your worth by burning out." "I know," I'd sigh, "but I'm scared if I don't try my hardest, they'll think I'm not good enough." Stefan would go quiet for a moment, then say softly, "Anders, I don't love you for how good you are. I love you for being you." Those words made my throat tighten. In a world full of competition and comparisons, there was one person who saw me not as a resume, but as a human. Not everything was perfect. In our 3rd month living together, we had our first real serious fight. The reasons sounded trivial. I forgot to tell Stefan I'd be networking with colleagues that evening. He'd prepared dinner and waited for me for an hour and a half. When I got home, Stefan was sitting at the table, the food cold. "You could have texted, Anders," his voice colder than usual. "I was busy," I shot back, defensive. "It was an important opportunity." "And I'm not important?" That question hit like a punch to the gut. "I didn't say that. But it feels that way." We stood just a few steps apart, but the distance between us felt vast. That night, we slept with our backs to each other. For the first time since moving into the apartment, I woke up without feeling Stefan's arms around me. I opened my eyes to Seattle's gray light and felt a cold emptiness. The morning joy, that had become so taken for granted, suddenly vanished. I turned over. Stefan was lying on the edge of the bed, the space between us just inches but feeling like miles. I reached out, hesitated for a second, then touched his shoulder lightly. "Stefan, är vi beredd?" He didn't respond right away. "I'm sorry," I continued, my voice choked. "I let work blur what's most important." Stefan sighed, then turned to face me. His eyes were slightly red, as if he'd tossed and turned all night. "I don't want to compete with your job," he said softly. "I just want to feel like I'm part of your life." I pulled him closer, our foreheads touching. "You're not a part. You're the center." We didn't solve everything in one conversation, but we chose to stay, to listen, to touch instead of pulling away. And when I woke up the next morning, Stefan's arms were back around my waist. The joy was no longer carefree. It was deeper, more mature, as if it had gone through a crack and learned to endure. I realized that loving a man, openly living with him in this city, wasn't just kisses and morning sunlight. It was the decision to stay every day. And I still chose him. After that fight, we started learning to love each other like adults. Not the dramatic, romantic love of early college years, where every glance was like lightning, but the kind that required patience, honesty, and uncomfortable conversations. We set a new rule. Never make the other guess what you're thinking. It sounded simple. Doing it was hard. One Friday evening, after a long tiring week, Stefan invited me to a colleague's birthday party. I didn't like crowded gatherings, especially with strangers. You don't have to talk to everyone, Stefan reassured as we stood in front of the mirror, adjusting our shirts. Just being there with me is enough. I looked at us in the mirror. Two young men, living together, loving each other. In this city, it wasn't that unusual. But in me, traces of the old fear lingered. The party was at a rooftop bar overlooking Seattle's skyline. Golden lights hung overhead, indie music playing softly. I stood next to Stefan, holding a beer, trying not to look too out of place. Then someone asked, "Are you two roommates?" That moment stretched endlessly. I could say, yeah. Simple, safe, no explanations. But Stefan looked at me, not pressuring, not urging, just waiting. I took a breath. "We're boyfriends," I said. My voice didn't shake like I thought it would. The person nodded, smiling. "Cool. Congrats, you two." That was it. No weird looks. No whispers. Just a normal acceptance that surprised me. On the way home, Stefan held my hand, intertwining our fingers tightly. "I'm proud of you," he said. I laughed lightly. "I just told the truth." "Yeah, but sometimes telling the truth takes courage." That night, back at the apartment, I felt relieved, like I'd set down a burden I'd carried for years. But not everywhere was as easy as that rooftop bar. The first time I told my family I was living with a man I loved, it wasn't smooth. It was a FaceTime call on a Sunday evening. My mom sat in the Oregon kitchen, warm yellow light, my dad in the background, silently listening. "I have something to tell you," I started, heart racing. I told them about Stefan, about how we'd been together since senior year, about our little apartment in Seattle, about how happy I was. There was a long silence after. My mom pursed her lips. My dad sighed. "Are you sure?" Mom asked. "This isn't just a phase?" That question hurt more than I expected. "No, Mom," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "This is me." My dad finally spoke. "We need time." The call ended not with laughter like usual, but with heaviness. I slumped onto the couch, the phone dropping beside me. Stefan came out from the bedroom where he'd given me space. "How'd it go?" he asked softly. I shook my head, eyes stinging. "They don't understand." Stefan said nothing more. He just sat beside me, pulling me into his arms. I buried my face in his neck, inhaling the familiar scent. Soap, skin, home. "No matter how long they need," Stefan whispered. "I'm here." In that moment, I realized, family isn't just where you're born. Family can also be the man holding you when you feel smallest. Time passed. We settled into city life. Rushed mornings, cooking together in the evenings, weekends at farmers markets or wandering old bookstores. Some mornings I woke up before Stefan. I'd lie on my side watching him sleep. The early light highlighted his jawline and long lashes. I'd reach out, lightly touching his cheek. Stefan would stir slightly, then open his eyes. "You look at me like I'm a work of art," he'd mumble. "I think you're more than that," I'd reply. He'd pull me closer, lips meeting lips, slow and warm. No ruse. No need to prove anything. Just two men in love in their small room in a big city. I once thought joy was grand, achievements, milestones. But it turned out it could be just the moment I woke up, saw Stefan still there, and knew we'd made it through another day together. The joy of waking up next to him no longer surprised me. It became the foundation, and I started wondering if one day we'd want more than that. That question didn't come from lack. Came from fullness. One late autumn evening, as the maple leaves on the street turned deep red, Stefan and I sat on the living room floor, leaning against the couch, eating pizza straight from the cardboard box. Outside the window, a light rain fell. The characteristic Seattle drizzle, not enough to soak, but enough to soften the air. "I just got offered to lead a new project," Stefan said, a hint of excitement in his voice. I turned, eyes lighting up. "Really?" Damn, that's big news. He smiled, but it was hesitant. Yeah. But the project is in San Francisco. At least a year. Those words made me pause. No remote option? Not fully. They want me there most of the time. Silence fell between us. The rain outside seemed louder. I knew the opportunity was important to Stefan. I knew how hard he'd worked. But the thought of not waking up together every morning tightened my chest. I don't want to do anything that makes us.
Stefan hesitated.
Makes us what? I asked. Makes us apart. I looked at him for a long time. Loving someone isn't holding them back. Loving is letting them grow, even if it means facing your own fears. I don't want you to turn it down just for me, I said slowly. I want you to do what makes you proud. What about us? I think, if those mornings together mean that much, we'll find a way to keep them. Stefan set the pizza box down, pulling me close. You make me both love and fear. Why? Because you always choose to believe in us. I smiled. Because I've woken up next to you enough times to know it's worth it. In the end, Stefan accepted the offer. 3 months later, we stood at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. He only had a large suitcase and a backpack. The project would start with the first 6 months in San Francisco, then reassess. I hugged him tightly. Don't get used to anyone in California, I joked, though my throat was tight. Stefan chuckled softly, forehead against mine. No one can compete with the man who hogs all the blankets every night. Hey, I'm cold. We kissed amid the passing crowds. No more hiding. No more hesitation. As he went through security, I felt like a part of my body had left. The first weeks apart were a challenge. We FaceTimed every night. Sometimes just to eat dinner together on screen. Sometimes to complain about bosses or share random stories. But nights were the hardest. The bed was wider, colder. I'd still unconsciously roll to Stefan's side, only to touch emptiness. One Saturday morning, I woke up early. Pale light filtered through the curtains. I lay still, listening to the quiet apartment, so silent I could hear the fridge humming. No steady breathing beside me. No arm over my waist. I realized I'd taken those mornings for granted, and now I missed them to the point of heartache.
I texted Stefan.
Wish I could open my eyes this morning and see you. A few minutes later, the phone buzzed. Me too. But one day we'll wake up together again, and cherish it more. I smiled, though my eyes stung. Distance didn't make our love disappear. It made me understand its value even more. In the 4th month apart, I decided to fly to San Francisco to visit Stefan. When I knocked on his temporary apartment door, my heart pounded like our first kiss. The door opened. Stefan stood there, hair a bit longer, face slightly tired, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. Hey, he whispered. Hey, no more words needed. We hugged as if afraid the other would vanish if we let go. That night, lying on the unfamiliar bed, I wrapped my arms around Stefan, pulling him close. Listen, I said softly, lips near his ear. No matter what city you're in, no matter the job, I still want my future with you in it. Stefan turned, looking straight at me. You're talking about? I don't know exactly, I admitted. I just don't want to imagine mornings without you one day. Stefan placed his hand on my cheek, thumb brushing lightly. Me neither. We didn't talk about rings, not about weddings, not about grand titles. But in Stefan's eyes, I saw a promise. That those mornings together, no matter the detour, were where we'd return. And for the first time since he left Seattle, I slept soundly. When I returned to Seattle after that visit, the apartment no longer felt as cold. It was still quiet, still missing Stefan's footsteps every morning. But in me, there was no more panic. We weren't drifting apart. We were taking a big loop to come back stronger. In the months that followed, I learned to live alone without feeling lonely. I started going to the gym again, cooking proper meals instead of takeout, and spending more time thinking about the future, not with fear but with agency. I realized something important. I didn't just want to wake up next to Stefan out of fear of losing him. I wanted to wake up next to him because I chose it. That difference was small but powerful. By the 6th month, Stefan's project ended earlier than expected. I was at the office when I got the text. "You home tonight?" "Of course." "Why?" "Don't ask too much." I thought maybe he just wanted to FaceTime as usual. I didn't dare hope for more. That evening, I got home earlier than usual. The apartment was silent as always. I turned on the living room light, set my bag down, and went to the kitchen for water. Then I heard the key turning in the lock. I turned around. The door opened. Stefan stood there, not on screen, not via webcam, right at the threshold, with his suitcase behind him and a smile so wide it nearly stunned me. "I missed home," he said. I don't remember when I ran to him. I just know I hugged him tightly, almost lifting him off the ground. "You're back," I repeated, as if not believing my eyes. "Back?" Stefan laughed, kissing me in the lit room. "And this time to stay." Turns out the company offered him to continue the project remotely. No need to move to San Francisco permanently. That night, we lay on the old bed, in the familiar room, and I couldn't stop looking at him. "Don't look at me like that," Stefan mumbled, cheeks slightly flushed. "I'm just trying to memorize this moment. You act like I'm about to disappear again." "I know you won't," I replied. "But after losing those mornings with you, I don't want to take them for granted anymore."
Stefan leaned in, lips touching mine, warm.
That night, I slept in his arms. And when I opened my eyes the next morning, the familiar early light fell on Stefan's face. He was still there, not for a few days, not for a short visit. Here, with me. The months after Stefan returned were the most peaceful I'd ever known. Not because there were no problems. Work was still stressful. My family still needed time to fully accept our relationship. But in that small apartment, we built our own rhythm. We repainted the bedroom a soft blue, bought a new dining table, hung photos of us from college, the beach, San Francisco. One winter evening, during a rare snowfall blanketing the street, we sat close on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. "Do you ever think about 10 years from now?" Stefan asked. "Yes," I replied. "And the only thing I'm sure of is I still want to wake up and see you." Stefan was silent for a moment, then stood up. "I have something." He went to the bedroom and returned with a small box in hand. My heart pounded.
"Stefan,"
I whispered. He knelt in front of me, in the living room where we'd eaten pizza, fought, cried, and laughed. "Anders," he said, voice slightly trembling. "I can't promise every day will be easy, but I can promise that every morning, if you open your eyes and see me, I'll still choose you, over and over." I don't remember when I started crying. "You want to keep waking up next to me? For life?" I laughed through tears. "Yes. God, yes." The ring wasn't overly fancy, but when Stefan slipped it on my finger, I felt like the world had hushed to make room for that moment. We kissed in the warm golden light, snow still falling outside. And I knew the joy of waking up next to him was no longer just habit. It was a promise. Our engagement news wasn't posted on social media right away, not because we were ashamed, but because the moment was too private, too sacred to share hastily. We kept it to ourselves for a few weeks, like a sweet secret existing only within our four walls. But then reality came. I called my mom first. This time I wasn't as nervous. "I want to tell you something," I started. Stefan proposed to me. On the other end, I heard a deep breath, a pause. Then Mom asked, "Are you happy?" I smiled. "Yes, I've never been surer of anything." Her voice softened. Then, "I need time, Anders. But I don't want to lose you." My tears fell before I could wipe them. "I don't want to lose you either." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a step forward. When I told Stefan, he hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. "I think I'm just learning not to hide anymore." We decided on a small ceremony. Not extravagant. No lavish ballroom. Just a summer afternoon in a park near Lake Washington, with tall trees and sunlight filtering through the leaves. Stefan wanted to write his own vows. So did I. In the weeks before the wedding, We'd sit at the dining table every evening, editing words and teasing each other. Don't make it too cheesy, I warned. Stefan raised an eyebrow. You're the one who said, I want to wake up next to you for life. That's not cheesy. That's sincere. Sincere and cheesy are sometimes just a thin line apart. I threw a pillow at him. He caught it, then pulled me close, kissing me amid laughter. The wedding day came faster than I imagined. I stood under the tree canopy, in a fitted navy suit, hands slightly trembling. Stefan walked toward me on the gravel path. He wore a light gray suit, hair neater than usual, but his eyes were the same as the first time I saw them, gray-blue, deep and gentle. When he stood before me, all surrounding noise faded. Just us. I read my vows first. Stefan, I said, voice catching. You've taught me that joy isn't grand milestones, but ordinary mornings. When I open my eyes and see you there, I promise never to take that for granted. I promise to choose you, in easy days and hard ones. Stefan swallowed before starting. Anders, I love how you see the world as if it's still full of hope. I love how you hold me every morning like you're afraid I'll disappear. I promise to always come back to you. And if there's a day you forget how strong you are, I'll be the one to remind you. As we exchanged rings and kissed to the applause of friends, I felt a circle close, from that senior year orientation to this moment. Two young men once afraid to step into the adult world, now facing it hand in hand. Our wedding night wasn't a fancy hotel. We returned to the very apartment that had witnessed every stage of our love. I draped my suit over the chair, flopping onto the bed, chuckling softly. We're really married, I said. Stefan lay beside me, hand on my chest. Yeah, and tomorrow you'll still have to get up early for work. I burst out laughing. So romantic. He kissed me. Slow, deep, more emotional than any kiss before. No fear of separation. No hesitation. Just certainty. That night, as we lay close under the familiar blanket, I placed my hand on Stefan's chest, feeling his steady heartbeat. Hey, I whispered in the dark. Yeah, thanks for staying. Stefan tightened his arms. Thanks for choosing me. The next morning, I opened my eyes. Light still streamed through the curtains as always. Cars still hummed on the street. And Stefan was still beside me. Hair messy, lips slightly parted, one hand on my waist. No fireworks. No soundtrack. Just an ordinary morning. But I smiled, because I knew it was no longer ordinary. It was the result of fights, months apart, hard family calls, uneasy choices. The joy of waking up next to him wasn't magic. It was what we built every day. And as I leaned in to kiss Stefan lightly on the lips, he stirred, smiled, and pulled me closer. I understood that, no matter how many years passed, no matter if our hair turned gray, no matter if the city changed, if every morning I still opened my eyes and saw him there, then I was still living exactly what I wanted most. The joy of waking up next to him.